The valley of Orion was calm that morning. The twin suns had just risen, spilling soft light across the green hills. The air smelled of fresh rain, and small crystal birds sang from the branches of tall trees. In the middle of this beauty, a small child named Lura ran across the grass with her bare feet, laughing as the dew splashed against her ankles. She was a gentle soul, always curious, always asking questions about the world. Her mother, Nira, was not far away. She stood outside their round stone home, placing woven baskets on a wooden frame to dry. She watched her daughter with soft eyes. For Nira, the valley was safe, the home of her people, and the place where her child could grow without fear. But that morning, something was different. Lura stopped running and touched her back. Her face showed confusion. She pressed her small hands against the cloth of her simple dress as if something beneath it hurt. Her laughter faded, and her eyes turned toward her mother. "Mom," she called in a quiet voice, "something is on my back." Nira straightened at once. She hurried toward Lura, her hands brushing the child's arms with care. "Show me, little one," she whispered. Lura turned, lowering her head so her mother could look. At first, Nira saw nothing. But when she pressed gently between the child's shoulder blades, she felt it. Hard ridges rose beneath the skin. They were not small bruises or marks from play. They were sharp and firm, like bones pushing upward, trying to break free. Nira's heart froze. She pulled her hand away as if fire had burned her. The basket she had been carrying slipped from her arm and fell to the ground, spilling dried herbs onto the soil. Her legs weakened. She dropped to her knees beside her child, her breath shaking. Lura looked at her mother with wide eyes. "Does it hurt me, Mom? Did I do something wrong?" Nira pulled her close, hugging her tightly, though her mind spun in panic. "No, you did nothing wrong," she whispered, forcing her voice to stay calm. But inside, her chest ached with fear. She remembered old words carved in the stones of the valley, words that spoke of a sign that should never return. The sprouting. That was the name whispered by elders when telling stories of long ago. It was said to happen only once in 1,000 years. A child would grow ridges on their back, ridges that would one day burst into wings of light. It was not a gift but a heavy burden. Those who carried it were marked by fate. They were tied to the forgotten age when humans and Nira's people had once lived side by side. Nira pressed her forehead against her daughter's hair. Memories of her own mother's warnings flooded her mind. The sprouting meant change. It meant danger. It meant that the child was no longer ordinary but chosen by forces no one fully understood. Lura shifted in her arms. "Mom, why are you crying?" Nira had not noticed the tears on her face. She quickly wiped them away, trying to smile. "I am not crying, little one. I am only tired." But her voice trembled, and she knew her child could hear it. The valley around them seemed different now. The birds no longer sang. The wind moved strangely through the grass, as if it carried a warning. Nira lifted her eyes to the horizon, where mountains touched the sky. She felt as if shadows had already begun to fall upon their peaceful home. She looked at her child again. Lura was small and bright, with curious eyes that held no fear of the world. She deserved a simple life of joy, not the heavy chain of prophecy. Yet Nira knew the ridges on her back were real, and they would only grow stronger with time. Her hands shook as she held Lura tighter. "You are my child," she said firmly, as if declaring it to the winds themselves. "No matter what happens, you are mine." Lura leaned into her embrace, comforted by her warmth. Then I am safe, she whispered, closing her eyes. Nira wished it were true. But deep inside, her spirit trembled. She had fallen to her knees not only from shock but from the weight of knowing. Something had begun that morning in the valley, something far greater than her or her child. The sprouting had returned. And with it, the world would never be the same again. Nira carried Lura into their stone home. The house was simple, with walls made of smooth rocks and a roof covered in thick green leaves that kept away the rain. A small fire burned in the middle of the room, giving warmth and light. Nira placed her child on the soft bedding made of woven grass. Lura looked at her with curious eyes. "Mom, why are you worried?" "I only feel a little sore." Nira tried to smile, but her lips shook. She sat beside her daughter, gently touching the small ridges on her back. They felt harder now, as if they were already growing. Nira pulled her hand away quickly, afraid of what the future held. Her heart was heavy with old memories. She remembered when she was young and listened to the elders tell stories by the fire. They spoke of a time long ago when humans came to their world. At first, humans and her people worked together. They built cities, shared knowledge, and faced storms side by side. But then a sickness came, a sickness no cure could stop. To save both peoples, the humans tried something bold. They mixed their strength with alien life, binding it to their own bodies. Some of the children born after carried strange changes. Some had eyes that glowed in the dark, some had hands that could heal wounds with a touch, and a rare few grew wings. The people called this rare sign the sprouting. The elders warned that the sprouting brought not only power but also danger. Those children became symbols. Some were worshipped, others hunted. Wars rose because of fear and jealousy. To protect the land, both humans and aliens agreed to end such experiments. Over time, humans left the valley, and the memory of them faded into stories. The sprouting had not been seen again for hundreds of years. Until now. Nira placed her hand on her chest, feeling her heart race. She could not tell Lura the truth, not yet. The child was too young to carry such a weight. Lura broke her thoughts with a soft question. "Mom, will it go away if I sleep? Maybe tomorrow it will not hurt anymore." Nira brushed her daughter's hair back from her face. "Maybe, little one. Rest for now." The child lay down, curling into the bedding. Within minutes, her breathing slowed, and she was asleep. Nira stayed beside her, unable to move. The fire crackled, shadows dancing across the walls. Every sound outside felt louder, every gust of wind like a whisper of warning. Her mind would not rest. She thought of the carvings on the valley stones, carved by their ancestors to warn of the sprouting. She remembered the sharp lines etched into rock, showing children with glowing wings rising into the sky while whole cities burned below. She remembered her own mother's voice, saying, "If the sprouting returns, it means change will come. Some will fear it. Some will follow it. But all will feel its weight." Nira pressed her face into her hands. Why her child? Why Lura, who was gentle and playful, who loved the valley birds and the river stones? She deserved a quiet life, not the storm of prophecy. The night deepened. Nira finally rose to her feet and went outside. The twin moons were high above, shining silver on the grass. She walked to the old stone wall at the edge of the valley, where the carvings told the story of the past. Her fingers traced the lines of the stone. She stopped at the shape of a winged child, carved larger than the rest. "Is this what my Lura must carry?" she whispered. Her knees trembled, but she forced herself to stand. She could not let fear rule her. If the sprouting had returned, then it had chosen her child for a reason. She had to be strong, stronger than she ever imagined. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence. A neighbor, old Marin, came walking along the path. He carried a lantern and leaned on a wooden staff. His eyes, sharp even with age, noticed her at once. "Nira," he said softly, "you are out late. What troubles you?" Nira's mouth went dry. She wanted to hide the truth, but Marin had always been kind. He had lived long enough to know the old stories. She lowered her eyes and said only, "My child is unwell." Marin looked at her carefully. For a moment he seemed to study her face, as if guessing what she did not say. Then he nodded slowly. "Children carry mysteries we cannot always understand. But remember, Nira, love can guard more strongly than fear. Do not forget that." His words stayed with her long after he left. She returned to the house, her steps heavy but her mind sharper. She could not run from this. The sprouting had begun, and she must protect Lura with all her strength. Inside, the child still slept, peaceful and unaware of the storm waiting to rise. Nira sat beside her again, holding her small hand. The burden of memory pressed against her heart. The past was alive again, and it lived in her daughter's back. The next morning began quietly, but Nira's heart was restless. She rose before the suns had climbed the sky and stepped outside her stone home. The valley looked the same as always, with green hills rolling away and silver rivers winding through them, but she felt a change in the air. It was as if the world itself waited, holding its breath. Inside the house, Lura still slept. The ridges on her back had not gone away. If anything, they felt sharper when Nira touched them in the night. She did not tell her daughter, only smiled and whispered comfort when the child stirred. Nira busied herself with her morning tasks, but her mind was heavy. The sprouting was real. She could not hide it forever. Sooner or later, others would see, and the whispers would begin. She thought of her talk with old Marin, his words about love guarding stronger than fear. She tried to hold on to that thought, though her heart still ached. By mid-morning, the valley broke its silence. A sound unlike any Nira had heard in many years rumbled across the sky. It was deep, like thunder, but steady, not fading. The ground trembled lightly beneath her feet. She looked up. The clouds above split apart, and a great shape appeared, blocking the light of the suns. A ship. It was no air beast, no storm cloud. This was a human vessel, vast and shining with silver plates. Trails of fire marked its descent as it slowed above the valley. The people of the village poured from their homes, pointing and shouting in fear and wonder. Children clung to their parents. Elders fell to their knees, whispering prayers. Nira's body stiffened. She remembered the stories of humans, the ones who had left long ago. Most of her people spoke of them with suspicion. Some thought they had brought only trouble. Others believed they had saved the valley from a greater doom. But never, in her lifetime, had she thought to see their return. The ship lowered until it hovered just beyond the edge of the village. With a hiss, its great doors opened, and a group of figures stepped out. They wore long suits of pale metal, smooth and bright, with clear shields over their faces. Nira's breath caught as she studied them. They were different, yet not strange. Taller than her people, but their eyes, their hands, even the way they moved felt familiar. The villagers backed away, some shouting warnings, others standing frozen. A man stepped forward from the group of humans. He removed his face shield and looked across the crowd. His hair was dark, his eyes sharp but calm. He lifted his hand, not in threat, but in greeting. "My name is Aaron," he said, his voice strong enough to carry over the murmurs of fear. "We come in peace. We return not as rulers but as friends." No one answered. The villagers looked to one another, uncertain. Old Marin stepped forward, leaning on his staff. His voice was thin but clear. "Humans have not walked here for many generations. Why do you return now?" Aaron's gaze shifted. He seemed to weigh his words before speaking. "Because signs have awakened. The sprouting has returned." The words spread through the crowd like fire through dry grass. Gasps, shouts, and whispers filled the air. Some cried out in fear, others in awe. Nira felt her stomach tighten. She wanted to hide Lura at once, but it was too late. The word was free. The sprouting was no longer only her secret. Aaron's eyes moved over the crowd, sharp as if he searched for something. Then his gaze stopped. It rested on Nira. She felt his eyes upon her, as if he could already see the truth hidden inside her home. Fear burned in her chest, but she held herself still. She would not let anyone take her child. Aaron took a slow step forward, his hands still raised in peace. "We do not come to harm. We come because the sprouting connects us. Long ago, it was born from both our peoples. We carry knowledge of what it means. And we know the dangers it can bring if ignored." The council of the village began to gather. Stern faces, robes marked with symbols of authority, voices filled with doubt and suspicion. One elder shouted, "Your return is no accident. You bring danger back to our land." Another said, "If the sprouting is real, it belongs to us, not to humans." Nira's breath quickened. She wanted to speak, to defend her child, but her voice locked in her throat. She pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders, trying to hide the trembling in her hands. Aaron stood firm. "The sprouting does not belong to one side alone. It belongs to the child who carries it. We seek not control, but understanding. If we fail to guide it, the burden may harm more than just one village. It may touch the whole world." The words struck deep. Even those who feared humans could not ignore them. The air grew heavy with silence. Nira turned toward her home. Inside, her daughter still slept, unaware of the storm gathering outside. She felt torn between two powerful fears: the fear of losing her child to human strangers, and the fear of her people turning against Lura when the truth was known. The ship's shadow loomed across the valley, and the eyes of both humans and aliens searched for the child who bore the sprouting. And Nira knew the time for hiding would soon end. That night, the council of the village gathered in the great hall. The hall was built from tall stone pillars, with torches burning along the walls. Shadows danced across the floor as the people filled the space. Some came out of fear, some out of curiosity, and some simply to see the humans with their own eyes. At the center, Aaron and his small group of humans stood quietly. They had set aside their shining helmets, showing their faces to all. Their expressions were calm, though their eyes studied every detail around them. The council elders sat on raised seats. Their robes were marked with threads of silver, a sign of their long service. Elder Varin, the oldest among them, leaned forward. His voice was heavy with suspicion. "You say you come in peace. Yet your ship darkens our skies and frightens our children. Why should we believe you?" Aaron bowed his head respectfully before speaking. "Because we bring truth. The sprouting has returned. You have seen the signs. And you know what it means. A hush spread through the hall. The elders exchanged uneasy glances. Many of the villagers had heard whispers, but no one wanted to admit it. Nira, standing in the back of the hall, felt her heart pound. She held Lura's small hand, keeping her close, her shawl wrapped around the child's shoulders to hide the ridges on her back. Elder Varen narrowed his eyes. The sprouting is a curse from the past. It should never have been born. What do you know of it, human? Aaron's gaze swept across the crowd before he answered. Long ago, our ancestors faced a sickness that nearly destroyed both our peoples. To survive, they bound our bloodlines together. It was not done in cruelty, but in hope. Some children were changed. Some carried gifts. Among them were the winged ones. The sprouting is not a curse. It is a sign of the bond that saved your people and mine. Murmurs filled the hall. Some nodded, remembering the old stories. Others shook their heads in disbelief. Another elder, Sarah, spoke sharply. If it is not a curse, why did your kind leave us? Why did you abandon the valley when the sprouting brought only war? Aaron did not look away. His voice remained steady. Because fear consumed us. We lost trust in each other. Instead of protecting the children, we fought over them. My people chose to leave, not because we hated you, but because we could no longer protect what we had built together. It was our greatest mistake. The hall grew silent again. Nero felt her throat tighten. His words struck close to what the carvings on the stone wall had shown. She had always wondered why the humans had left. Now she began to understand. Aaron's eyes softened as he continued. We return because the sprouting has awakened again. We felt it across the stars. A child has been chosen, and with that child, the chance to heal what was broken. But if fear rises once more, if we let anger guide us, then both our peoples will suffer again. Nira held Lura tighter. Her daughter looked up at her with wide eyes, not fully understanding, but sensing the weight of what was being said. Nira's heart ached. She wished she could carry the burden herself and shield her child from every eye in the room. Elder Varen struck his staff against the floor. You speak of healing. But prophecy tells of fire and ruin. How can we trust that this sprouting will not destroy us? Aaron stepped closer to the circle of elders. Because this time, we know the truth. The sprouting is not a force of ruin, but a bridge. It binds human and alien together. It carries memory and strength from both sides. The danger lies not in the child, but in how we treat them. If we give fear, the child will grow in fear. If we give love, the child will carry hope. For the first time, Nira saw doubt on the faces of the elders. The crowd shifted uneasily. People whispered, some leaning toward belief, others sinking deeper into fear. Old Marin, who stood among the villagers, lifted his staff and spoke. His voice trembled but carried weight. When I was a boy, I saw the carvings with my own eyes. They told of war, yes, but they also told of light. The winged one was not shown as a destroyer alone. The child was shown as a guide. Perhaps we have misunderstood. The hall stirred. Nero felt a spark of courage in her chest. Perhaps not all would turn against her daughter. But the tension was not broken. Elder Sarah's eyes narrowed. If such a child truly exists in our valley, they must be brought before us. They must be studied and judged. Only then can we decide if this is hope or doom. Nira's blood ran cold. She clutched Lura's hand so tightly the child winced. The eyes of the crowd swept across the hall, searching. For a moment Nero feared they would see the ridges beneath her daughter's shawl. She lowered her head quickly, pulling Lura behind her, her heart racing like a storm. Aaron raised his voice, firm and clear. You speak of study and judgment. I speak of protection and guidance. That child is not an object. They are not a tool. They are alive, innocent, and bright. If you treat them as a burden, you will bring the very ruin you fear. His words echoed through the hall, strong enough to quiet every murmur. The firelight flickered, and the silence that followed felt heavy as stone. Nira held her child close, knowing that the secret was slipping from her hands. The sprouting was no longer a whisper hidden in her home. It was becoming the center of every voice in the valley. And soon, the choice of who to trust would fall upon her. The night after the council meeting, the village was restless. Torches burned late into the hours, and voices carried through the narrow paths. Some spoke in fear, others in anger, and a few in quiet hope. The word of the sprouting had spread like wildfire. Every family whispered about the chosen child, though none knew who it was. Inside her stone home, Nira sat awake by the fire. Lura slept soundly beside her, curled under a warm blanket. The ridges on her back pressed more sharply now, and sometimes the child stirred, frowning in her sleep. Nira stroked her hair gently, her heart heavy with worry. The council's words echoed in her mind. They wanted the child brought before them, to be judged, to be studied. Nira knew what that meant. They would not see her daughter as a child but as a tool or a threat. She could not allow that. A soft knock came at the door. Nira froze, her hand tightening protectively on Lura's shoulder. Slowly, she rose and opened the door just a crack. Old Marin stood outside, holding his lantern. His wrinkled face was lined with concern. Nira, he whispered, there are those who search already. The council debates, but some do not wait for orders. They believe the child must be taken at once. Nira's breath caught. Taken? By who? By a faction that fears the humans, Marin said. They believe if the child is hidden or destroyed, then the humans will leave us again. They do not see the truth. They only see danger. Nira's knees weakened, but she forced herself to stay strong. What should I do? Marin looked at her with tired but steady eyes. You must protect your daughter. The humans offered their aid. Perhaps their leader, Aaron, truly means what he says. If so, you may need him. Alone, you cannot fight the fear of a whole council. Nira closed the door slowly after he left. She turned back to Lura, who stirred in her sleep and whispered, Mom. I am here, Nira answered softly, kneeling beside her. The next day, the tension in the village grew sharper. Groups of villagers gathered in corners, whispering and pointing. Some glanced at Nira as she passed, their eyes filled with suspicion. She pulled her shawl tighter and kept Lura close by her side. By midday, trouble began. A group of 3 men approached her as she fetched water from the river. Their faces were grim, their eyes unkind. One of them spoke harshly. We hear the humans say the sprouting has returned. You keep close to them. Tell us, Nira, is it your child? Her heart pounded, but she lifted her chin. My child is only a child. Leave us. The man stepped closer, lowering his voice. If it is her, then you bring danger to us all. Do not think you can hide her forever. Nira pulled Lura behind her and walked quickly away, her hands trembling. She felt the stares of the villagers follow her. That night, she made her choice. She went to the humans' camp outside the village. Their ship stood like a silver mountain, glowing under the light of the twin moons. Guards watched carefully, but when Aaron saw her approach with Lura, he stepped forward at once. "You should not be here," Aaron said, though his voice held concern, not anger. Nira's eyes burned with unshed tears. "They will come for her. Some already threaten us. I cannot protect her alone. If you truly mean your words, then help us." Aaron looked down at Lura. The child's eyes met his with quiet innocence. He knelt so he was level with her. "You are stronger than you know, little one. What grows within you is not something to fear. It is a gift. But it must be guarded, for others will not understand." Lura tilted her head. "Will they hurt me?" Aaron's face softened. "Not while I stand with you." He rose and turned to Nira. "Bring her here when you must. We will keep her safe. But understand, the more they fear, the harder it will become. Some may try to take her, not just from your people, but from mine as well. Fear is not bound by one side." Nira's chest tightened. "Then what am I to do?" "You must hold to love," Aaron said firmly. "The sprouting was never meant to divide. It was meant to unite. But until that truth is seen, we must protect her from those who cannot yet accept it." The sound of voices rose in the distance. Torches flickered at the edge of the field. A group of villagers had followed Nira, their faces hard with anger. They shouted at the humans, demanding the child be given over. Nira pulled Lura close, her heart racing. She saw the fear in her daughter's eyes, and it tore at her soul. Aaron stood tall, facing the crowd. "This child is under our care. If you bring harm, you bring it upon both peoples." The villagers shouted louder, some raising stones, others waving staffs. Nira knew it was only the beginning. The fear had grown too strong to remain in whispers. The threat had risen. And the storm was coming for them all. The council called a great gathering in the center of the village. Every villager came, filling the wide square. Torches burned on tall poles, their flames waving in the wind. The humans stood on one side, the villagers on the other, and in the middle sat the council elders upon carved stone seats. Their faces were stern, their eyes sharp. Nira stood at the edge of the crowd, holding Lura's hand. She could feel the eyes of her people on her, heavy with suspicion. Some looked at her with pity, others with fear. Lura clung to her arm, silent but trembling. Elder Varen struck his staff on the stone floor, and the voices of the crowd fell to silence. His voice carried across the square. "We have learned the truth. The sprouting has returned, and the child lives among us. For the safety of our people, this child must be given to the council. Only then can we decide if it is safe to let her remain." A wave of whispers spread through the crowd. Many nodded in agreement, but some turned their eyes away, uneasy with such harsh words. Nira's chest burned. She stepped forward, her voice shaking but strong. "You speak of safety, but you forget this is a child. She is not a weapon. She is not a tool. She is my daughter." The crowd stirred again. Some murmured approval, but others hissed with fear. Elder Sarah rose from her seat, her voice sharp as a blade. "You put your love above the lives of us all. Do you not remember the carvings? Do you not remember the wars that followed the sprouting?" Nero lifted her chin. "I remember. I also remember that it was fear and hatred that caused those wars, not the children themselves. You speak as if prophecy rules us, but we are the ones who choose how we act." Aaron stepped forward from the human side. His voice was calm but firm. She speaks the truth. The sprouting does not bring doom. It only brings what you decide to make of it. If you treat the child with fear, then you create the danger you dread. If you treat her with care, then she can become a bridge between us. The elders looked uneasy. The crowd wavered, torn between fear and hope. Old Marin raised his staff. I have lived longer than most here. I say this child should not be taken from her mother. She should be protected, not imprisoned. If you take her, you will plant only anger and sorrow. For a moment, the square was filled with silence. Then Elder Varen spoke again, his voice heavy. The choice must be made. Nira, will you give your child to the council, or will you defy us? Nira's hands shook, but she pulled Lura close, holding her against her chest. She looked into her daughter's wide, frightened eyes. She thought of the nights they had spent together, the laughter by the river, the songs whispered before sleep. Lura was not a symbol. She was not a prophecy. She was her child. Nira turned to the elders, her voice clear and strong. I will not give her to you. If I must stand alone, I will stand. She is my daughter, and no council will take her from me. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some shouted in anger, others in surprise. Elder Sarah rose to her feet, furious. Then you are a traitor to your own people. Aaron stepped forward quickly, standing between Nira and the council. If she is a traitor for loving her child, then she is not the one who has lost the path. You speak of protecting your people, yet you are ready to harm one of your own. That is not strength. That is fear. The torches flickered as the crowd erupted into argument. Some villagers cried out in support of Nira, shouting that the child should be left in peace. Others demanded that she be handed over before ruin fell upon them all. The voices rose higher and higher until the square shook with division. Through it all, Nira held Lura tightly, her heart steady now. For the first time since the ridges had appeared, she no longer felt helpless. She had made her choice. No matter what came, she would protect her daughter. The elders tried to regain order, striking their staffs on the stone floor, but the people no longer listened. The crowd was breaking apart, torn between fear and hope, trust and suspicion. As the voices clashed, a sudden light glimmered from beneath Lura's shawl. Nero looked down in shock. The ridges on her daughter's back were glowing faintly, shining through the cloth. Gasps filled the air as more villagers noticed. Elder Varen's eyes widened. It begins, he whispered. Nira held her daughter close, shielding her with her arms. But she knew it was no longer possible to hide the truth. The sprouting was revealing itself before them all. And the path ahead, uncertain and dangerous, was now set. The glow on Lura's back grew brighter with every heartbeat. The villagers stood frozen, torn between awe and fear, as the soft light spilled into the square. It was not a harsh light, but gentle, like the rising of dawn. The ridges shifted beneath her skin, and for the first time, the outline of wings began to form. Nira tightened her arms around her daughter. Her mind raced, but her heart was steady. She had already made her choice. Nothing would tear them apart. She looked at the crowd, their faces lit by the glow, and spoke with a firm voice. You see with your own eyes. My daughter is not a curse. She is a sign of change. Fear will destroy us, but hope can guide us. The crowd murmured, restless. Some whispered words of wonder, while others shrank back as if the light itself was dangerous. Elder Sarah pointed a trembling finger at the child. This is the beginning of ruin. If she is not stopped, all we know will be lost. But Elder Marin rose to his feet, his voice strong despite his age. No. What you see is not ruin, but promise. We have feared the old stories for too long. Look at her. That light is not death. It is life. Aaron stepped beside Nira and faced the villagers. I have walked through many worlds, and I have seen fear turn people against each other. But I have also seen what happens when courage is chosen instead. This child is not meant to bring war. She is meant to lead us beyond the walls we have built in our hearts. The words stirred something in the crowd. Some lowered their eyes, ashamed of their fear. Others looked at Lura with new curiosity. But the elders still argued, their voices sharp. Lura pressed her face into her mother's shoulder. Her small voice trembled. Mom, they hate me. Nira knelt and held her by the shoulders. She looked into her child's glowing eyes. No, little one. They are only afraid. But you are stronger than their fear. You carry something greater. As if answering her words, the glow on Lura's back burst outward. From her shoulder blades, 2 wings of pure light unfolded. They were not like bird wings or insect wings, but streams of shining energy, shaped like flowing ribbons that shimmered with every movement. The crowd gasped, many falling to their knees. Even the elders were struck silent. The wings lifted Lura gently into the air. She cried out, startled, but Nira reached up, catching her hand. I am here. Do not be afraid. The villagers watched in awe as mother and child stood in the heart of the square, bathed in light. For a moment, all fear faded. The glow touched everyone, warming their skin, calming their hearts. Then the sky itself responded. A deep hum spread across the valley, as if the mountains were singing. Lights flickered among the clouds, answering the wings of the child. The prophecy was alive, no longer carved in stone but breathing before their eyes. Elder Varin lowered his staff, his stern face softened with wonder. Perhaps we were wrong. Perhaps the sprouting is not the end, but the beginning. But Elder Sarah shook her head, her voice sharp with despair. No. This power will call others from beyond our world. We will be seen. We will be hunted. Do you not understand? Her warning chilled the air. The villagers looked upward with unease, as if the stars themselves now watched them. Aaron stepped forward again. Then let us not meet that future with fear. Let us meet it together. Human and villager, side by side. This child shows us what we could be if we stop dividing ourselves. The square fell into silence again. The choice lay heavy in the air. Nira raised her voice one last time. You can choose fear and lose everything, or you can choose trust and build something new. I will protect my child no matter what. But if you walk with us, then she will not only be mine. She will be yours as well. A child of hope, not a child of doom. Her words carried into every heart. Slowly, one by one, villagers bowed their heads. Not all, but many. Even those who still feared could not deny the light they had seen. Lura's wings glowed brighter, then slowly folded back, wrapping her like a cloak. She floated down into her mother's arms, exhausted but smiling faintly. Mom, she whispered, did I do something good? Nira kissed her forehead. You did everything good. Aaron looked at them both, then turned to the crowd. The world has changed tonight. There is no going back. But change does not have to mean ruin. It can mean a new beginning. The torches flickered in the night wind, but they seemed small compared to the light that now lived within the child. The people of the valley would never forget what they had witnessed. Nira held her daughter close, her heart full of both fear and hope. She did not know what tomorrow would bring. But she knew one truth. They would face it together. And so, beneath the twin sons of Orion, in the quiet valley where it had all begun, the story of the sprouting ended not with despair but with the first step into a brighter tomorrow.